rocket-propelled metal missiles, wooden clubs lined with glass sharper than modern scalpels, sunlight turned into a ship-burning death ray, and mechanical computers used for who knows what over 2,000 years ago. These are more ancient weapons so advanced they shouldn't have existed. Here's an interesting angle: the Antikythera Mechanism. We don't often think of this ancient, mysterious artifact as a weapon, but who knows? Back in 1901, some Greek divers were searching an old shipwreck and dragged up what looked like a crusty green rock. It sat in a museum basement for decades, as no one had any idea what it really was. But in the 70s, scientists put it through an X-ray scanner. What they found inside was pretty mind-blowing. Packed inside were dozens of tiny bronze gears, all cut with insane detail, fitting together just like the inside of a mechanical watch. But this thing was built over 2,000 years before. To say this thing was far ahead of its time would be a massive understatement. You turned a little handle on the side, and all the gears inside started turning together. Some of those tiny gear teeth were only as big as a grain of rice. Before finding this, experts thought nobody knew how to make gear systems that advanced until like the 1300s. Completely changed what historians thought about what ancient people were doing with metal. Now, what was this mechanism actually used for? There are plenty of theories, but nobody's been able to say 100% for sure. It's the only one of its kind. Around 213 BCE, the Roman Navy sailed a huge fleet of ships to attack the Greek city of Syracuse. They expected an easy win, but Archimedes turned the city's sea walls into a massive line of defense using the sun's reflection. Story goes that he lined up dozens of soldiers along the walls, all holding giant bronze shields that were polished until they worked like mirrors. They angled the shiny shields to catch the sun, bouncing all the rays together into one burning beam of light. Then they aimed that beam straight at the Roman ships sailing into the harbor. Think of it like a kid using a magnifying glass on a sunny day to burn a leaf, but on a massive scale. Once that concentrated beam hit the dry wood and the sails, the boats got so hot they literally burst into flames on the water before they could even get close enough to attack. MIT students tested this years ago with polished bronze plates and actually set a wooden boat on fire from far away. Simple, but highly effective. Next up, we have another really odd artifact. In the late 30s, workers digging near Baghdad found a small clay pot that was over 2,000 years old. Inside was a tube made out of copper, and hanging down the middle of that tube was a single iron rod, sealed in place with tar. Researchers looked at how it was put together. They realized it was built almost identically to a modern battery cell. If you take that clay pot and fill it up with something acidic like simple vinegar or lemon juice, the liquid reacts with the copper and iron to generate a real electrical charge. Nobody was plugging in light bulbs back then, but if you connected a few of these pots together in a row with wire, you'd get enough juice to do some interesting things. Crafty metal workers probably used the electric charge to coat cheap iron jewelry in a paper-thin layer of gold or silver so they could sell it for a higher price. But others think maybe priests used the zaps to give people a little shock during rituals, making them think they were feeling the touch of a god. And of course, these ancient batteries may have been used in warfare at some level. Who knows? About 4,000 years ago, weapons makers in ancient Egypt came up with a blade that completely changed hand-to-hand fighting. It was called the Khopesh, half axe, half sword. It started out straight near the handle and then swung into a big curved hook. The unique shape gave a soldier two giant advantages on the battlefield. The outer curved edge was thick and heavy, so when you swung it down, it would hit with the hard force of a heavy axe. But the inside of the curve wasn't sharp at all, working like a giant grappling hook instead. A warrior could swing the blade past an enemy's shield to catch the top of the wood with the hook and pull it down out of the way. With their chest left completely open, you could land a strike. You could even use the hook to grab someone's ankle and trip them. Casting a big curved blade like that out of hot bronze without it snapping during a fight took crazy skill, which is why it became the favorite weapon for pharaohs and their top commanders for over 1,000 years. Before steel armor or gunpowder, ancient archers built incredibly strong bows using basic stuff from nature. Regular bows back then were made from just one bendy stick of wood. If you made the stick too stiff, it couldn't pull back, of course, but if you made it too soft, the arrow didn't fly far or with much power. So builders started doing something different. They took a wooden core and glued hard animal horn to the inside curve facing the shooter, because horn is great at being squeezed tight, and they glued stretchy animal tendons to the outside curve facing away, because tendons are great at being pulled long. When this bow was unstrung, it actually curled completely backward into a tight C shape. To string it, you had to forcefully bend the arrow's arms all the way back in the opposite direction, fighting against its natural shape just to hook the string on. That trapped a massive amount of tension inside the frame. The result was a short, lightweight bow. It was easy to shoot from the back of a running horse, say, but fired arrows with twice the power of a giant wooden bow twice its size. But even tens of thousands of years before anyone invented the bow and arrow, Ice Age hunters figured out a simple trick to throw heavy spears with far more force than you'd get by only relying on your body. The tool was called an Atlatl. It's basically just a short wooden stick with a handle on one end and a little hook sticking up at the back. You rest the end of a long wooden spear against the back hook, holding the stick flat in your hand. And when you go to throw, the stick acts like a giant extension of your own arm. Think of those plastic dog toys people used to fling tennis balls across a park without hurting their shoulder. That's what this was, except for spears. Instead of just throwing with your arm muscles, you flick your wrist and the extra length of the stick would whip the dart forward. That extra leverage gave ancient humans way more speed and power than muscle alone could ever pull off. The impact was so hard that a stone tip could punch right through the thick skin and bone of a woolly mammoth, but they were able to do this from a much safer distance. You may not know the name of this next weapon, but you've definitely seen it before, like in museums or in movies. Hard to pronounce. The Macuahuitl, the Macach. There's a lot of different pronunciations, but when Spanish troops showed up in Central America, they ran into this Aztec weapon that looked like a big wooden cricket bat. It was a lot more terrifying than that, though. These things were carved from thick pieces of wood, about 3 feet long, with deep grooves cut along both side edges. Aztec craftsmen took pieces of obsidian, which is shiny dark volcanic glass, and crushed them into razor-sharp flakes. They glued those glass flakes into the side grooves using sticky tree sap. You could sharpen volcanic glass down to an edge so thin, it can actually get sharper than modern doctors' scalpels, making it way sharper than any European steel sword at the time. Those jagged glass teeth didn't leave clean cuts. They tore through anything they touched. Old reports from Spanish soldiers mention an Aztec warrior taking off a horse's entire head with one solid swing. While smaller launchers handled quick shooting, the Roman army rolled out the giant Ballista when they needed to break down heavy stone walls. It looked like a giant wooden crossbow, but it didn't get its launching power from bent wood. It used pure twisting force. Engineers built a massive wooden frame housing 2 giant vertical bundles of rope made from tightly twisted animal tendons and human hair. They'd stick wooden arms into the middle of those rope bundles and crank them back with iron winches, twisting the ropes tighter and tighter like a bunch of pulled rubber bands. When you pulled the trigger, those twisted rope bundles snapped forward. The power was enough to launch heavy iron bolts or 100-pound boulders over 4 football fields away. The stone hit with so much force it could crack stone defenses. In the late 1700s, the kingdom of Mysore in southern India completely changed warfare by building the world's first successful iron-cased rockets. Before this, early rockets in China and Europe used paper or bamboo tubes to hold gunpowder, and the big problem was that paper and wood would burst open easily when the powder caught fire, which limited how far they could fly and how much powder you could pack inside. Indian rulers Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan fixed this by hammering soft iron into solid, seamless metal tubes instead. The heavy iron was strong enough to hold the burning powder under massive pressure without blowing apart, sending the rockets flying through the air over a mile. To keep them flying straight, they also strapped long 8-foot bamboo poles to the side to balance them. Whole squads of soldiers would line up rows of these metal rockets on carts and launch massive barrages into enemy lines, and when British forces saw these things in action, they took the designs back home to build their own metal rocket systems. And that has been the video. I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.